All right, you've got a video about the 1913 Women's Parade. I'm sorry, not a video. You've got a Library of Congress link. It's really good. I was looking over it again, though. It's pretty long, and so I don't want you to, read that super carefully and take too much time with it. I wanted you, there's lots of great images about the parade there, and it does include a lot of the same stories that I tell in class. So certainly still look at it, but let me just give you some of those stories here. So the initiation of the parade I've already mentioned, right? Radical for women to think about having a parade. And the older guard, like Carrie Catt and others, sort of, question Alice Paul and Lucy Burns in doing this. But again, they have those kind of more radical tactics that they're interested in. And so they cleverly coincide the parade to go with Wilson's inauguration. So Wilson shows up in Washington, D.C. for his inauguration. It's going to be the next day. And when he shows up, there's not a lot of people there. And he's kind of like, where are all the people? And somebody tells him they're at the Women's Parade. And sure enough, several thousand women march. And, countless bystanders are there to see like what's happening, like we've never seen this before. And so the women, if they're nurses, and you can see some of this in the pictures. If they're nurses, they're going to wear their nursing uniform because they want to look, respectable. Because again, this is a little kind of bordering on, not being respectable, marching this parade. If they have a college education, which many of them do, and now there's that possibility, they wear their cap and gown to show that they are educated, that they are, again, respectable women. The parade gets a little, again, as the article tells you, it gets a little violent. The women are shouted at, and people pull at them and kick at them, and the women have, many of them have injuries. Helen Keller was one of the featured at the end. Helen Keller was going to give a presentation, and she was too rattled to give it, after having gone through the procession. The police officers later, they'll be criticized for this, but at the time, the police officers who were there, they just didn't get involved, and just basically were bystanders while the women were attacked. There's a great story with Ida B. Wells, but I really liked the little 60-second video that I included in the module, so I want you to watch that. And so I'll save that Ida B. Wells story that I usually tell. One other kind of just fun link that I usually make in class is in 2017, the Women's March in 2017. Initially I thought I would go to Washington, D.C. to participate in that, but it's because history, right? I mean, we did this in 1913. I wanted to be there in 2017 when it happened, but it was cost prohibitive. My son was 5, so we thought, well, we'll go into LA. But then I was like, I don't know, what things are going to be like. And my son's 5, and I wanted him to be there to participate. So a group of us got together in Riverside to put together a march, and it's probably one of the most memorable experiences of my life. Because, initially we thought, oh, there'll just be a few hundred people. We had an Eventbrite page, and a few hundred people had signed up. And then the night before, the numbers kept getting bigger and bigger. And then we'll talk about the women's marches in our last lecture when we, bring it up to the 2016 election, our class of the 2016 election. But just as an aside here, I was asked to speak at the Riverside March. And, initially I was like, it's okay. It'll just be a few hundred people. That's just 6 of my classes together. I can do that. But then on the day of the march, as you all know, it was huge. Millions and millions and millions of people marched on that single day in January of 2017. And in Riverside alone, there were 5,000 people. And so I was a little nervous to speak in front of what turned out to be 5,000 people. At the last moment, my son wanted to come up with me, and that was very cool. to have him there with me. And at the end, he looked up at me and he said, "That was awesome, Mama. You're awesome." It's one of my most memorable memories. I'm feeling a little emotional, getting close to another election here. But anyway, what I talked about at that march was the 1913 march, and how the connections between those two, that women, this is something they do, they march. And so I often think about, when I talk about now the 1913 march, that connection to the 2017 march. So thank you for indulging my memory there for just a moment. Again, I do encourage you that the link for from the Library of Congress is long, so I don't want you to feel like you have to read through all of that. It would take longer than you need to, but definitely look at the images and give it a good skim and find some more stories in there. And don't forget to watch the Ivy Wells Barnett 60-second video, because it's a great story about her in this march. Take care.